Hi everyone and welcome back to Rachel's Enchanting Cakes. For today's tutorial I'm going to be using one of the new freestanding Katy Sue molds. I'm going to show you how easy it is to make this adorable freestanding baby dragon cake topper, and behind him we also have a completely edible turret, so for any sort of castle cake or castle cake topper. This has been made from delicious Oreos. It's a great technique to do, and the edible clouds that you can see surrounding our baby dragon. As always, everything you need to know in a straight to the point, step-by-step format. Happy baking everyone, and I really do hope I help you again today. Let's make a start. Starting with the turret, using some chocolate. It doesn't have to be pre-coloured, you can use any type of chocolate you want and any type of biscuit. Simply glue them to each other and allow the chocolate to set. This will create a perfect turret. I then simply add a very small amount of American buttercream frosting, and you will notice here that I have got it on some cling film. This is a little tip for you. Once you have added the buttercream frosting, simply wrap it up in the cling film and it will have a lovely smooth finish. I just then place this in the fridge for a short period just to allow the buttercream to set. I've taken this out of the fridge, and as you can see the cling film works beautifully. But how easy was that to achieve? You can use any form of biscuit, no mess, no Rice Krispie treats required. Now to cover this, it doesn't matter if you don't have this mould, but it's beautiful. This is more of an embossing mat, and it's going to allow me to create all that detail on the turret with ease. Using either modelling chocolate or fondant, simply roll out a small piece. You then want to place this directly on the embossing mat and push in with your fingers first, just to pick up on all that lovely detail. We are going to be working on a panelling technique, so this is excellent if you are a beginner and you're not that used to working with modelling chocolate or fondant, because it's super easy. Once you have gone over this with the rolling pin, I then very carefully peel away the embossing mat and just look at the lovely detail it leaves behind. Taking your panel of fondant, simply apply this directly to your Oreo biscuits. The buttercream will act as a glue. Then using a very sharp knife, you want to simply cut off the excess on the top. Once you have done this, simply lay it on its back like I have done here, and repeat that process with another piece of fondant or modelling paste. Simply bend it where the rim meets, and then again, just using a sharp knife, first of all trim this down so that they meet together correctly, and then you want to trim off the excess on the top. So for the tower on top of your turret, all I started to do was roll a simple cone shape. I wanted mine to be a bit wonky, so I then used a cocktail stick just to add a few indentations. You can then simply apply this directly to the top of the Oreos using a small amount of buttercream, and that would be more than enough. However, I did have another mould in my collection, and I'm going to show you the detail I was able to add. This mould is by Dinky Doodle. It's not essential, so don't worry if you don't have one. I simply add a small amount of icing sugar, roll out a sausage shape in the same colour that I have done the actual turret. You simply want to push this in into all those nooks and crannies. This will come away from the mould beautifully, so here you can see me take it away. I then cut off the excess, add a small amount of edible glue directly to the top of my turret. One piece was enough to go all the way around, and it just adds that extra finishing detail. Here I have a 5-inch round cake drum. I then simply add lots of balls of modelling chocolate. You will also notice the round piece of modelling chocolate. That is roughly the same size as the turret, just to raise it up. You want to leave a gap. This is where our dragon's going to go, and you just want to cover the majority of the drum. Cover this now with some cooled down boiled water, because we're going to add a very thin layer of fondant to give it that cloud-like effect. So here I have rolled out a very thin amount of fondant. Now the reason I'm using fondant is because it's got this brilliant white colour. but just look at the details of those clouds that are actually coming through. So you gently want to go around each ball of modelling chocolate that's underneath with your fingers and make sure you pick up on all those lovely creases, and it will give you this lovely cloud-like effect. So the super detailed but simple dragon has been made using this easy stand dragon mould by Katy. So just look at all the detail in the actual mould. This comes in 2 parts, so it will allow the dragon to stand freely for your 3D styled cakes. Using some black fondant and a Dresden tool, I start by adding the pupils directly to the mould. Now I haven't added any icing sugar because I like to use these moulds slightly differently. Take your time doing this because the eyes are always the most important. You then want to add on top of this a small amount of white fondant. Just let the mould guide you. Once you have done this to both of the eyes, on top you need to now add some more black. That's because there's a slight black rim in the actual mould, and these will really make the eyes stand out. Now for the horns, again using a Dresden tool, this will just help you have more control over any colour fondant that you choose to use. I simply randomly apply these to the sections that I'm actually wanting to use on the mould. You'll notice those little dots. You could put fondant in there if you wanted to, but I choose to actually paint mine. We're going to do that a little later on. Once you have done this with the mould, you then simply want to fill the rest of it with one solid colour, the colour that you have chosen for your dragon. So just below the head, I want the centre of the body to be blue. So I just push this in and again kneading it up with the Dresden tool before applying more of the purple fondant. Moving on to the base of the mould, you just need one simple colour. I add this with the colour that I'm choosing to have my dragon, and then if you place this in a freezer, it's so much easier to release from the mould. Just to show you how easy they are to release from the mould, I've already released the top part, we're now going to release the bottom. These will have some condensation on them because they have been in the freezer. So all I do now is leave these to dry overnight. I then simply use some edible paint. Now you can use some ready-made edible paint or make your own using some luster dust mixed with a small amount of alcohol. I simply go over the wings and a few of those different details that you find on the baby dragon. Very simple to do, just make sure it's dry first. I glue this together using some melted chocolate and then simply place some edible glue directly onto our decorated cake drum. Remember, we have left a gap for the baby dragon, and simply place him directly on top. He really was that quick and easy to make. All I would do then is dowel my cake, and this would support this beautiful cake topper that could be made well in advance. Happy baking, everyone. I really do hope I've helped you again today, and I'll be back soon with an awful lot more new, completely free content.